Hi, my name's Clover Stroud, and I'm a writer and journalist and write on Substack. And I wanted to just, first of all, say thank you so much to Claire for inviting me to talk and be part of this lovely event. It's a real privilege to be able to talk to you here, and it's kind of apt, I suppose, as well, because I'm currently embarking on my fifth memoir, and I have been a journalist since I was 23, and I'm now 49. And one of the big reasons that I started writing, and a reason which has become more and more compelling for me as a writer, is a desire to connect and communicate with other people and share my experiences with other people, and for other people to share their experiences with me, essentially so that the kind of strange and often lonely process of being a human being and walking through life is something that we can feel and experience together. And it's really interesting how Substack is developing as a place for us to do that. And I wanted to talk to you a bit about the different books I've written and how those books have connected with people and how that has worked with my relationship, first with Instagram and then with Substack. So I was a journalist from my 20s, but I knew I had a big story that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to share with people, which was when I was 16, my mum had a very bad accident which left her profoundly brain damaged, and she was alive for 22 years with really serious brain damage. And that sent me, that kind of ongoing trauma sent me off into the world where I really tested myself and took myself into dangerous places. And after she died, when I was in my late 30s, I thought, I want to write about this. I want to write about what this feels like. So the first book that I wrote is a memoir called The Wild Other, which is really a kind of coming of age story. And it's about the process of a young woman growing into a woman. And it's a book that I'm very, very proud of. Elizabeth Gilbert said it was in her top 10 books she'd ever read. As has Dolly Alderton has said, it's, a book that formed her. It's full of kind of adventure and different landscapes and the kind of and sort of excitement and sex and different men and the kind of things that we go through as younger people, I suppose. And it's a kind of classic memoir. A lot happens in it. And when that book was published in 2016, I was obviously very well established as a journalist by then. I'd been writing since the year 2000. But that book really spoke to people, and it really helped people to kind of communicate with me. And it was the same time that I went onto Instagram. I had also just had my fifth child at that point. And so it was 2016, and I was sitting feeding my young son and feeling, as we do with young kids, like confused, exhausted, excited, in love with my little baby, but also quite alone. And I realized that the kind of challenge of being a mum, this was at the same time my adolescent son was getting into lots of normal adolescent trouble. The challenges of being a mum were every bit as big as the kind of challenges that I'd faced after my mum's accident, and the way I'd gone off and traveled around the world and put myself in dangerous situations. So the next book I wrote was called My Wild and Sleepless Nights, and it's about what it really feels like to be a mother. And I was aware as a memoirist that I could take an experience and really hold it up to the light and look at it, contemplate it from every different angle. So that experience was motherhood. My third book, I wasn't forced. I wrote something which I didn't want to experience, which was grief, and it happened in 2019 after my sister died, really very suddenly. And I wrote a book called The Red of My Blood. I wanted to describe the way grief really, really feels, what it's really like, what really happens to us when the person that we love dies. And my fourth book, which came out most recently, is called The Giant on the Skyline. This book was written after my husband said we should go and live in America. And I was at that time living in Oxfordshire in a home I really, really loved, where I felt really, really kind of safe and at home and settled. And leaving there, being forced to leave there, because I was forced to leave there, kind of pulled up these questions of like what home is. So The Wild Other was a kind of a classic memoir Then there was My Wild and Sleepless Nights and The Red of My Blood and The Giant on the Skyline, which are about motherhood and grief and home. So each of those subjects are things that we all experience, we all go through. That, you know, the stuff that I've gone through is not extraordinary, it's not exceptional, it is exactly the same stuff that you too will experience. And that is what's really, really crucial for me as a memoirist, this sense that I'm sharing something which is, yes, incredibly personal to me, but it is also absolutely universal. And Instagram enabled me to connect with people in an extra way. I wouldn't say it's a more profound way, because people who read my books feel, I know, profoundly moved and changed by them and connected to me, because they're incredibly confessional and they are really my heart's blood. If you read my books, you know what motherhood feels like for me, and you probably will know more clearly what motherhood feels like for you, or what grief feels like, or what home really feels like. And so I joined Instagram in 2016, and I built a following by being who I am. I didn't really mean to do, there was nothing conscious about this, and you can probably tell from looking at me now that I'm not a very slick person, that I am incapable of making like slick reels and videos and kind of slick graphics and all that kind of stuff. What I've presented on my Instagram is who I really, really am. And that is really, I think people have really loved that, seeing inside my house and seeing the mess and seeing the chaos. And I've really enjoyed that as a way of, you know, Instagram actually was a place where I felt less lonely, because I had people to talk to when I was doing a lot of parenting on my own. And that has kind of naturally segued into Substack, where I wanted to have, Instagram has been really, really fun, but at times I was frustrated by the fact that I couldn't write long enough captions. I love writing, and for me, it's not about snappy reels and snappy videos. It is really, really about the writing. But I also do like talking to people. And Substack has really given me a platform in which I can write exactly how I want. I have been a journalist since my early 20s, so for basically 30 years. So I'm used to being edited, I'm used to being commissioned. And there's been something wonderfully liberating about writing in exactly the way that I want to. And that means really, really connecting with readers and writing truly, truly from my heart, and writing in a way, you know, I might be writing a piece about moving house, and then I might kind of put a bit of poetry, like I was writing a piece about moving to America and sitting on an aeroplane, and I put some T.S. Eliot into it. Now, if I was writing that for a newspaper, it's very, very unlikely they would let me do that. So there is something kind of beautifully real and beautifully immediate and authentic about Substack that I really love. And I think that the most important advice that I could offer with writing, with social media, with Substack, is to be yourself and to be real, and don't try and copy other people's ways of being, because there's no point. You are yourself, and your voice is what will bring people to you and make them want to talk to you and have a conversation with you and stay on your page and read your stuff and share their ideas. And that's what one of the real joys is, that kind of sharing of ideas and sharing of experiences. And it's wonderful for me posting something about feeling lonely in a foreign country. You know, I live in America at the moment. I find it really difficult at times. And it's been really wonderful on Substack to be able to write about that and to be able to write at length about it. Because I've actually written, since I joined Substack in February, I've written about 60,000 words on there, to be able to really, really communicate ideas in a kind of deeper and richer way than I might have done on Instagram. And obviously, you know, I'm writing a new book now. It's really lovely as well, being able to kind of creatively test ideas out. But I think listening to your own voice and listening to your own intentions, and not worrying about being polished. I mean, look at me. I am so unpolished, and my house is such a mess. And the chances are that you watching this are also unpolished, and your house is probably a mess too. And for me, I want to break through the kind of gloss and perfection that Instagram sometimes can present, and get to the real human stuff. Because I think that when we share the mess, and when we share the real feelings, and when we share our struggles, and when we share our insecurities and neuroses, and the joys and the things that excite us, that's when we kind of get somewhere as human beings. Cut the bullshit, basically, and be real. Be as real as you possibly can be. And I think in your writing, in the way that you communicate via social media, whether that is Instagram or Substack, hopefully, that's kind of where you can communicate and find authenticity. And that's what I'm after. Obviously, authenticity is a slightly overused word, but like it is a kind of, that sense of a connection with another human being. That wonderful feeling when you meet somebody and you have a really rich and really deep conversation, you think, my God, that person really gets me. I think that's what Substack can be like at its best. I know for me, with the books that I write, and I'm really, really proud of these books. They are, they're all books that mean so much to me, and which communicate so much about human endeavor and human experience. And when somebody reads one of those and says, the way that you've written about grief, or the way you've written about motherhood, or the way you've been written about being transplanted to a new country really, really spoke to me. That is what writing is about. That feeling of like, we're humans together in this, and we're not alone. And the weird and wild and terrifying way that I feel is shared by other people. For me, that's what writing is about, and that's what the books are about, and that's what Substack can be at its best. So yeah, I think that feeling of communicating who you really are, and don't be ashamed of it as well. I teach memoir writing retreats in America and England, and one of the big things I teach about is letting go of shame, because the stuff that you're most ashamed of, that you carry deep inside you, is being carried, a similar experience is being carried by somebody else as well. And we think that our own pain is so personal and so singular, but we are all carrying this stuff. We're all feeling this stuff. And the person who looks like they've got it sorted, the person who's making the slick reels, whatever it is, probably doesn't as well. And that feeling of the shared experience of human life and human pain and joy and the ridiculous and the lustful, the funny, is so valuable. And that's why writing, and this kind of personal memoir writing, can be such a joy. Thank you so much for listening to me. And I hope to see you on Substack. Come and join my community there, and then we can chat and talk and share more. Thank you.